Hello and welcome to another episode of the Molten Truth. We thank you for joining us here today. We would remind you that if you have been watching any of our episodes and if you enjoyed them, please hit that like button, share it, tell others about it. We are trying to grow and we're trying to help our guests grow, their audience. So anything you do in the way of sharing our broadcast is greatly appreciated. So, we are here today with a much anticipated guest. We actually had tried to record this a month or two ago and technical difficulties, so Eric got pushed back on our calendar, but today we finally get to have him. Yay! Eric, thank you so much for joining us.
A pleasure to be here, Zoe.
Yeah. So, I guess let's kind of get some housekeeping things kind of squared away. So, I'm assuming you must have a website, yes?
I do, yes.
What's your website?
www.recoveryartscounseling.com, and that's counseling with two L's since I'm up here in Canada.
Okay. Is that how they spell that in Canada with the two L's, or is that just what was available for
That
website addresses?
it was available, and I didn't check to see if the one with only one L. Yeah, that's how they do spell counseling up here in Canada. Yes.
It's always fascinating to me. Different countries, you can have the same language, but there are those variations. It's the funniest thing.
When I was living in New Zealand, they spelled like a tire Tyre for like a car tire, and I was like, "Whoa, that is totally different."
Yeah, the only other time I've seen that has been like in my Bible reading. There's a city Tyre in Sidon, and that's the only other time I've ever seen
Yes.
that spelling. That's interesting. I had forgotten
Hmm.
that you and I had both been into New Zealand. Back when we talked way back when, but I'd forgotten that we also had that as far as common ground. But did you live there in New Zealand, or were you just there visiting?
Yeah, we were living there for around 15 months.
Good chunk of
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah, a bit of a span.
what took you to New Zealand?
Well, it was. So I was working at an inpatient treatment facility in lovely Mississippi, and I was speaking through, I think it was a chat system with one of my friends who I had become acquainted with in New Zealand, and there was a spiritual emergency that he was experiencing, and he asked me, "Hey, would you like to come and help me out with this particular thing that I'm experiencing?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So my wife and I, just newly married for about 10 months, we left my job, left furniture, left two cars, left the rental house that we were living in a place called Farmington, and we went to New Zealand.
That is amazing. First of all, kudos on being a great friend. I don't think anyone I know would do that, and I have a lot of friends that I consider pretty great, but I don't know if they would drop everything and go to another country to be with me. They might come for a visit, but I think they'd be
Right?
like, "We'll support you via Zoom, or we'll come stay with you
Yes.
for a few weeks. We're happy to visit you in this other country." But I don't think they would actually upend their lives and move. So serious points on the friendship.
Thank you, Zoe. If he was from like Alabama, it might have been similar to what you're saying. Like, hey, I'll come visit you and then wish you all the best, praying for you, that kind of thing. So, yes, it was a grand adventure for my wife and I.
I believe it. Well, New Zealand's so amazing. I when my family went, and this was several years ago, back when life was just a tad bit more stable. But it was right after COVID, like at the tail end of COVID. And usually my family, like this time of year, my family's out on the Caribbean. They're out on a cruise as I speak with you here, because this is typically the time of year when we say, yeah, the weather's bad in the States and let's get out of Dodge. And so that particular year, because New Zealand had closed its doors to visitors during the COVID to protect itself, they were trying to now win back some tourism. And for the price of what it took us to go on a cruise in the Caribbean, we got to go fly from California, have a long, like a 3 day layover in Tahiti, in Papeete, and then connecting flight to New Zealand. So we said, well, if we're going to do that and we're going to travel that far, we're going to make it worth our while. We're going to stay for 3 weeks. We're going to do, a week on the South Island, a week on the North Island, and then we're going to, tag on 2 extra days to our 3-day free layover in Papeete, and we're going to really enjoy this trip. Little did we know there'd be those awful typhoon hurricanes that would slightly alter our plans. We spent a lot more time on the South Island and no time at all on the North Island, except for the airport there in Auckland that had been flooded twice.
Brutal, eh?
But it was
Brutal time.
such a great trip. Despite that, I actually enjoyed New Zealand more than I enjoyed Tahiti. And I thought it would be the reverse because I am all about, water and the beach. And I did enjoy Tahiti for those reasons. But I loved New Zealand. It was great. I could imagine living there.
Totally. And yeah, I guess on our part we did for a little while, and I can totally see why you enjoyed New Zealand. And we spent actually the same amount of time, around a week or so, maybe shortly less than that. For the whole 15 months or so we were there, we only visited the South Island for about a week. So you might have saw more than we did, even being there for over a year. We were mainly on the North Island.
Just a smidge. We saw down. Oh goodness, we saw like the southern part and the eastern part. We didn't get up, to the northwestern part, and that was only because we had to extend our trip a week on the South Island because there was no way North was being barraged by that next horrible storm that got them.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I remember. I think it was on the South Island, if I remember. We were going around a curve, and then there was this huge herd of cows that were coming our way on the road, taking up both sides. We had to stop, and then the cows just passed between our car, and they had someone herding the cows, and we're just like, okay, this is how it's done.
I guess so. See, and that's
Yeah.
interesting. So, was that in the northwestern part of the island where they had the cows?
It it must have been around either the north or the northeastern part. We didn't get to the western part from what I remember. We did go down to the Milford Sound, so we did go pretty far down
Okay,
south.
you did.
It's just I'm trying to remember, trying to gauge where we were at. It's hard to exactly remember.
Well, yeah, it's been long enough that I'm blanking out on names except for like Dunedin, and I think we might also have gone to Milford Sound. That was like the very first day we arrived. No sooner did we arrive, and the very next morning at the crack of dawn, we went on this long bus ride out to the Milford Sound. But
It's,
yeah, wow. But it's interesting because here in the States, cows normal, they're everywhere. You know, a little less common when I lived in Ecuador. They were less common. You'd see one or two cows. Outside of Quito. But when I was on the South Island, mainly I saw sheep. But what really surprised me was kind of like domesticated deer. Like they raise deer the way that we raise cattle in the States, and that was like what? But venison, the whole extension into England, it makes sense. But I was like,
yep.
you can domesticate deer. You can get deer to actually stay in a boundary.
Yep. So cool, eh?
It really, I love traveling, the culture differences, and I'm I don't know if I'm qualified as a foodie. I like to think that I do, but the different tastes that go with staying in that different country, especially someone like New Zealand. I had some of the best food there.
I love the food there too. And there's something called kumara that is like a sweet potato there, and I've never seen it. They must not export it, or they don't export it a lot. And it's such a lovely taste that's like it's got a different taste than like sweet potato, and it's just so good, you know.
I guess I didn't get to experience
Yeah.
that, or if I did, I didn't recognize it. But boy, that sounds good.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
So as much I could talk all day just about the food and the travel and stuff, but one of the reasons that we're here, of course, is to talk about your book. So let's talk a little bit about you've got two books out. One of them is on Amazon. One of them is more broadly distributed, I think you said.
Yeah, they're both on Amazon. The first book that I published is on like Apple iBooks and other types of publishing platforms. The second one's just on the Amazon for ebook and print.
And so, what are your books about? I'm trying to remember one of the titles, and the only word that's sticking in my head is dirt. But I I'm thinking of
Hey,
the title.
that's like, hey, you know what? A plus, that's 10% of it, so that's all good. Yeah, so the second book that I released, Buried Alive, Four Ways to Free Yourself from the Dirt.
That's like
There's the D, there's the dirt. That's the most recent one, and it's kind of like a self help and true story interwoven together. So something happened to one of my family members where they did get buried alive. Thankfully, they
I'm
survived.
glad to hear that.
And yes, if it wasn't for two of the friends being present at this incident, would have happened a lot differently. And so I bring in the actual documentary interviews I did with all three of them back in 2005. I had to transcribe that word for word, which was a process because it was all like I didn't use any AI, just like listen and then typed out what was said. You know, I had to go back, listen, type it out, listen, type it out. And I those are broken up into chapters with those parts that were interviewed. And then I bring in four different self help concepts as well that apply to what happened that fateful day back in 2000.
Now,
Yeah.
you've had some education that qualified you to not just record this, but also add um, information that would be useful to people who are reading this book. Tell us a little bit about that education.
Yeah, so I got a master's in clinical mental health counseling. So I bring in my experience and my education and just, working with folks one on one or with couples. And I just bring in these different concepts that I've been able to cultivate myself, but also see that these are important when it comes to our psychological, emotional health and bring those into the book.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that you and I had talked about back when we had our first try at recording this was that you had spent some time, I think, interning at the FBI. And
Yes.
I'm assuming that was involved during your education time period, that maybe it was an opportunity to learn maybe about how to profile or how to interact. I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So my first experience with interning with the Bureau was when I was a senior in my undergraduate, and I was able to actually go to a residential field office in Tennessee and be able to help out, assist there. And then my second opportunity, which I was actually originally an alternate for, I wasn't meant to go like originally unless couldn't go. Someone couldn't go. I had the opportunity. I had like 2 weeks to figure out where I was going to stay in Washington D.C., and that was during my graduate degree. I was able to, for the summer of 2008, to be at the headquarters and work in the Office of International Operations in a particular unit there.
Cool. I bet that was just education in itself, just being in that environment and seeing the inner workings and how just what level of things that they have to deal with. I can't even imagine. I mean, we get what we get on TV, but I'm sure that's not maybe the truest possible picture of what they really do.
Yeah, yeah. The between what's seen on TV and what's actually done, there is some space between what's really going on for their work and in their lives, and it's just really interesting to see, uh, just to hear about some of their experiences and some people that I did work with as agents, they were actually on one especially was on some high profile cases that are very well known, and just being able to hear about things behind the scenes that he experienced was really interesting. Yeah.
And I'm not going to push because I would assume that there's like disclosures that you have to sign that, you know, obviously there's things you can't talk about, just like in a lot of our jobs, we have things that are just not for public consumption. So I won't press on
Yep.
it, but it just stood to reason that for those exact reasons, there's information out there that's not going to be for public consumption. There's entertainment, there's kind of giving you an overview, an idea, but then there's the reality.
Yes, totally, for sure. And I had to get polygraph for both of my internships, and that was an experience in of itself. And I tell you what, they can be very precise, uh, and yeah, it's just a really interesting experience to be quite vulnerable and exposed. And I mean, the background checks that they had to do were quite, let's just say, very um, they do their homework, and the polygraph examinations were an interesting experience, especially for someone working in like the field of psychology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would guess so. I mean, not knowing a fraction of what those who study psychology know, I can only imagine what's going through your head as you taking everything you learned versus what they're throwing at you. Yeah, that's an interesting concept to think about that. Trying to be true to yourself and not overanalyze what they're asking you, kind of a thing. That's what's going through my head.
Totally, totally. I had the chance to be part of the behavioral science unit when I was in DC. Unfortunately, I had some friends that I made that wanted to come in as well, and when the division found out, they were like, "Sorry, we can't take you guys. There's too many people that were interested." So that made it to where none of us had the opportunity. You know what? I didn't really have an issue with it at the time. Even I was just like, I'm just grateful to be here and to serve and have this opportunity. So,
Absolutely. How helpful was that time, both of those times with the FBI? How helpful was that to you in the career that you pursued?
hmm. Well, I would say when it comes to like accountability, when it comes to transparency, when it comes to vulnerability, like there are some things that do overlap, and the importance of making sure that there's proper note taking as well when it comes to my clinical work. So yeah, there is some overlap when it comes to the jobs. I mean, it is, unless I was pursuing like counseling for people that worked with the FBI, that would be different. Yeah. So there was a few pieces that I found like, hey, just show up, be yourself, be engaged in the work. A lot of those things overlapped.
So that brings us back to your website. So recover counseling. So what is it that who do you work with? What is your clientele?
Yeah. So Zoe in recovery arts counseling, which I chose because I have a martial arts background, hence recovery arts, martial arts. So I work mainly with individuals and couples, seldom families, yet I have had some experience with families. So usually like 18 to 65. I work with some adolescents, but not many. So that's the main folks that I work with their ages, and that's males and females in the population. Yeah.
And I think that ties into your first book, does it not?
Yes, yeah, the martial art of recovery is more about the intersection of martial arts concepts with addiction and mental health treatment. So I bring in some of my personal experiences from martial arts, and no holds barred. I don't show myself as an impeccable martial artist that never got beat, knocked down on the mat.
So you're not
Yet I
Dr.
bring in a
Jackie
lot of
Chan.
concepts. I'm not Jackie Chan or Jet Li or Chuck Norris, especially. None of those folks. uh, yeah, so I bring in some different American Kempo concepts and techniques and bring that over to anxiety, depression, trauma, and especially addiction work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's very curious because I would not equate the study of martial arts with that type of therapy, with those type of issues. So what is the connection?
For me, the importance of balance in martial arts, balance is something that has to be continuously worked on, improved, being aware of. Also awareness. my environment as well, because when it comes to depression, anxiety, and when we're looking at addiction for sure, awareness of what's going on internally and externally is very important. And the same can be said for even protecting myself, where I could have an opponent, which in my book I characterize as, dependency or addiction, habit forming with mood altering substances and behaviors. So I need to know what's going on for me inside of myself, but also what's going on in my environment. You know, driving by the liquor store, or maybe a person, place, or thing that's not going to be beneficial for my recovery. So there's a few pieces that overlap with balance. Also, self control when we're sparring or learning a technique. I don't want to punch someone in the face accidentally. So I have to find out with self control not to be too far away, but not to be so far enmeshed that I accidentally hurt someone, which sure, it happens. Just like in life, sometimes we get enmeshed with people or places. Sometimes we're isolating. So it's trying to find that balance again between with self control about, hey, not being too far away from the help I need, but not being too enmeshed with maybe a particular person or even a therapist, where people get dependent on their therapist. So finding a balance between the two: self control, awareness, balance, discipline, discipline as far as self care. So there's a lot of elements that are interspersed.
Absolutely. So this makes me wonder because you're originally from Tennessee, so you're a Southern boy.
I'm a Southern boy, born in Arkansas, raised in Tennessee, so I am Southern bred.
You white bread. Okay, so sorry, just sometimes the corny just sneaks out.
I ate a lot of I ate a lot of white bread. Growing up, I ate a lot
All
of
those
American
Southern privileges,
cheese. So,
right? Who couldn't eat white bread with what
oh
privileges
yeah,
on the bread?
I know. I mean, it was just a prophecy fulfilled.
There you go. But so being raised in that Southern atmosphere, um, was there what was the influence for martial arts? Did it start early in life, or at what point did that come into play?
Yeah, when I did my first black belt in what's called Wado-Ryu, WADO dash RYU, I was around 12 years old. So I did like 10 to 12 years old with that particular martial art with my dad. And then when I was 16 to 18 with my dad again, we started doing American Kempo. And that was probably the one that I know more of, just because it's more recent and it was just frankly a lot more intense. Like I had to fight my martial arts instructor, the sensei, which was, yes, I don't know if there's such thing as an ex-marine. He was a marine in the past, like over 6 feet, not any gloves on. So, going to flashbacks of that experience, a lot more intense and invigorating and challenging. So it started for me quite young, and it was two different dojos, yet two really enjoyable experiences for different reasons.
So was this more family influence, more so than neighborhood influence then? Because I don't usually equate the
Yes.
South and martial arts. That's why I'm kind of going down this direction with you here.
I would say it was more family influenced. There was a community for sure with what was called Gary Steele's Karate Studio, where I grew up in Tennessee. And then it was very much a smaller, tight knit group when I pursued American Kempo. There was some Jiu Jitsu mixed into, yet primarily the Kempo, and that was a very core group in what we called the Snake Pit. And one of the gentlemen that was actually part of that group is actually teaching people now, which is pretty amazing. His name's Kevin. So, yeah.
So the only thing I know about anything related to martial arts goes back to the Karate Kid. So basically, I know
Hey,
nothing, right?
yeah.
So the one takeaway I did take from that movie, from that franchise, was you had the bad instructor who taught his kids to be violent, and then you had, of course, the other instructor who was teaching that it's for purely for self defense. That it's there for a purpose. So I'm guessing that you're on that side of it's there for a purpose because you seem like the most peaceful person that to talk to.
Which surprises a lot of people. And for me, sparring, it was trying to find, and this is even going to mental health, going between passivity and being aggressive and finding that assertiveness to spar. And yes, I am on the I'm in on the team of for defense. Don't need to be used for bullies. Bullies are jerks. Doesn't need to be used for that reason. And there's mild, moderate, and severe as far as the amount of damage that a martial artist can do. I can maybe just do the mildest form of defense and I can get away. I don't need to go to like, you know, some type of defense where I'm going out of my way to like harm someone greatly. I don't necessarily have to do that.
Absolutely, which makes sense to me. But I had to go down that road because that literally only stuff I know.
That's okay, and that's okay. Karate Kid's great. Even there's a movie with Chuck Norris that I really like called it's got this young gentleman. I think his name is Brandon in it too. Um, Sidekicks, yeah, Sidekicks, um, and even the Karate Kid TV series has a lot when it comes to discipline and self control and kind of. It actually has that bad, dojo teacher actually has him in the show again, and it's interesting. He hasn't learned too much, obviously.
That seems to mirror real life, doesn't it? The people who are intent on being violent tend to stay that way. It takes something pretty outstanding for them to change direction. And that doesn't always happen. It's not impossible, but it's not something you see every day. And that would be a case in point in my own household with the cat chasing the dog.
It's the age old battle, you know?
That's right. Usually it's the other way around, though, dog chasing cat. But yeah, in that moment, the cat decided to surprise the dog. Welcome to Zoe's world.
There's so much rich YouTube content that could be had with those fights.
Yeah, it's so true. Just cameras in the wrong direction, but probably a good thing because unfortunately my house needs a little TLC. Not getting it right now. So going back to where were we before the cat attacked the dog?
Martial arts and fighting and different dojos, and you asked about the Karate Kid and that your experience there.
I had a question I was just about to ask, and I completely lost it for the humor of that situation. Um, oh well, let's maybe move a different direction until my mind decides to come back to that angle. Um, so let's just go completely just crazy and say, what kind of entertainment do you enjoy?
I enjoy watching films. I used to play video games, not as much as now. I do enjoy going to concerts as well. If we're looking at it from a broad spectrum, even outside, indoors, I enjoy, well, concerts outside. Yet I like to be out in nature and hiking and biking. Put together the odd puzzle, which some people think is excruciatingly painful, and some think it's entertaining. I enjoy that. Well, it's not kind of a no-brainer, but I do enjoy writing. I used to enjoy writing screenplays a lot more. I haven't really picked that up in some time. It's been a slice for sure, but that was quite predominant in my past.
So
But
you
yeah,
did some
a
creative
few things.
writing more so than the more serious writing that you've done as far as what you've published.
Yeah, and some of those were like bios. Actually collaborated with a gentleman from New Zealand, interestingly enough, that's a documentary filmmaker in Mississippi, and he does documentary films, and we collaborated on a script that was really cool about this African American painter. And I've done some other collaborations with somebody, a zombie feature that won some awards. Uh, that was with a gentleman who's actually went on to actually have some films produced of his that he wrote. He lives up in Detroit area, and I've also collaborated with. Let's see, I think there was someone else. Yeah, I did collaborate with a producer on writing a screenplay for a welterweight boxing champion from South Africa. Nothing came of it, but it was really interesting to hear this gentleman's voice recordings of his life. Unfortunately, during the writing of the script, his dad was killed. He was actually shot. Unfortunately, I mean, I had to insert that into the script. Nothing came of it, and he's actually quite high profile, where he actually helped somebody come from another country that was being held in prison. So there was something that came up with a woman that he knew that he was actually helped advocate for to get out of this country and come back to the States. So anyway, that could probably be a film in and of itself with that experience. So anyway, I've had a few experiences with certain folks with collaboration, which I've enjoyed.
That is wonderful. So, if you were going to write another book, do you think you would go more not additional nonfiction style that you've been writing so far, or do you think you would dust off the creative side and go with something nonfiction? I'm sorry, fictional. That's what I'm looking for. Fictional.
It's an interesting question because I've got my third book. It's already written. It's soon to
Oh,
hopefully be edited, and it will not be fictional. But if I'm thinking about the one after that, my thinking is using a screenplay that I've written as a blueprint that was actually at one time in the production stage, close to actually being financed. The sad story is another film came in that was very similar, and all the producers just backed out, really abandoned the project, which was very sad, and I felt rejected and frustrated, and just
kind of
yeah, it was just really
bittersweet.
hurtful that
Yeah.
it
So
yeah, it takes its steam up. Yeah.
today we've got a treat. Usually my orange cat Orlando pops in to say hello to our audience. But this is Dawn, and who never shows up. This may be the first time she's actually shown up on an episode since we started. They are quite put out
Hey
with me
Don.
because I've been on the computer for most of the day. So she likes to get her afternoon kiss. That's what that head bump against my face was just now. She likes her afternoon little head bump kiss. But that's a rare thing that she showed up. So the audience who watches us knows to watch for Orlando or Dawn on most episodes. Anyway,
Hey Don.
yep, she's made her presence known and she's good. But she's the one who actually was chasing the dog a moment ago. She is stirring the pot.
Ah,
So
she's the pursuer.
she is the pursuer. Yes, she just likes to jump out, but out of nowhere and go, "Ha, gotcha!" So she's quite the little troublemaker, is what she is. Um, so the screenplay, the one that people kind of the wind that got knocked out of your sails. What was it about?
Hmm.
Okay, you need to go.
It was uh, it was about the Apostle Paul.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so that's all I'll say about it is um, about the Apostle Paul in prison in his later life,
Yeah.
which kind of gives away maybe a particular film that did come out in the last few years, um, which I went actually to see and support. So I wasn't like, oh, I'm not gonna watch that. I went and watched it, but
Yeah.
so it's I don't know I don't know if you've heard of The Chosen yet. It'd be more like his. I don't know. It depends on who you ask as far as if it would be considered fiction. Like I guess it'd be considered historical fiction in a way. Yet
Yes. Yeah.
depends on
There's
if you
some
believe in the
history.
Bible.
Well, there's some
Yeah,
behind as
there
well.
is parts the parts from the Bible, right? So it's I would say historical fiction.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
with some at least to me anyway, some nonfiction elements based from the Book of Acts in the Bible. So
Absolutely.
there's
So,
yeah.
I mean, his life, it's rich material to work from. I mean, he came from a very, let's see, the tribe of Benjamin, a very, I would say, well to do part. He definitely had, I mean, he sat at the feet of Gamaliel. I'm probably butchering that name, but basically, he was a lawyer.
You got it.
You
Yeah.
know, so I mean, that's
Yeah.
a rich material before he, was on that road to Damascus. So even before you get to
Yes.
that point, before his life changed so dramatically to, the Apostle Paul. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think you've got a lot to work with his life. So I hope that you'll follow through
I
and,
think so.
and do your book. And just you've got so much that you can take from his life that you could have a very original, different story easily.
Yeah, I think so too, and I hope that it's able to come to fruition. I really got a good portion of it already written. I just need to flesh it out now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, different audience, of course, but
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, my third book's going to be more about my confessions of an experienced counselor, quite
okay.
exploitative.
Oh,
So not too, I mean there are some self-help elements, but it's more about experiences of mine, keeping confidentiality for some of the cases that I might bring up, changing things around for sure. So yeah, and that's probably the most challenging part of my third book is trying to keep the confidence and how do I change things to make it a more of a composite for these cases.
sure. More about the material without bringing up any specific person or any way of identifying any specific person, unless they're willing to sign off like
Yep,
a release to allow certain pieces, maybe. Yeah, there's such,
absolutely.
it's such a tough thing. I think about doctors, any medical professional, what they write and how careful they have to be because of the HIPAA laws, just to protect people's information, while at the same time making known some important things for other professionals or for those of us who just hope to have good health and can learn what we can. It's such a fine line.
It totally is. And I'm definitely walking that line in this upcoming book. And I do hope that I'm able to get to a place where, like, I'm not using any gender, like, I'm not using any of that. I hope I make it to where, there is nothing that's identifying. I'm doing my best to make sure. So, yeah, well, and I might just, and if I find that I cannot um, make it as confidential as possible, I'll just take it out.
Yeah. Well,
So,
one of my favorite sayings I found on the island of Curacao, and it's when things don't go right, go left. Find a new direction. You
I
will
love
figure
that.
it out.
And I've had to do that with the script.
Yeah.
Yes, I had to do that with the script, like, um, just, yeah, that's what I'm looking to do is, I actually do have someone that is interested in the screenplay that is a producer across the pond. And so it's just kind of in the oven right now. So perhaps it gives more attention for that as a possibility down the line as a film. So we'll see.
Well, I hope it works out for you.
We'll see.
So now we're at the
Yeah,
fun
thanks.
part. Not that it wasn't fun already,
All
but
right.
we've had plenty of fun.
Yay.
So I'm going to actually have possibly two questions for you. We're going to start with the one that the person I interviewed this afternoon left for you. And if we don't have enough time from that question, which it might surprise me, maybe it will, I've got a second question. So her
Oh.
question to you was Post-it notes or index cards? Which do you prefer?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that. That's conniving.
Only a writer
I
would
would
think that,
say,
right?
oh yeah, oh yeah. Do I look like an obsessive, like, trying to figure out a crime all over my room with post-it notes, or am I categorized with index cards in a Rolodex? let's see. And most people maybe don't even know what a Rolodex is. That's kind of old school.
I was gonna
But
say,
anyway,
I think it's our age group is
I
the
would.
last one to use a Rolodex. Generation X. Woo!
Woohoo! I'm only a few years. Apparently, I'm like a just into millennial. Like
Really? Okay.
yeah. Apparently,
So you're
according to
calling
one
me
thing I
old.
saw, I'm like, sure. I didn't say it, Zoe. I didn't say it. I am innocent.
I just have to
Uh,
believe you.
I am innocent in this endeavor. Yes,
Just like
I
those
appreciate the fun. So
innocent man.
yeah, yes, I would say probably post-it notes because I do like that I can stick them somewhere, anywhere, and I feel like I'm more of a post-it notes kind of guy.
Yep. See, now my response internally to that question was neither. It would be all on my phone, my iPhone, on my little notebook in my phone or on my computer. So maybe I am younger,
You,
as you can
yeah, you
imagine.
got that aspect of you that's yes.
I think it's because I was raised as computer girl. I was right there by my dad's side, from early days on the computer right next to him because that was our thing. Complete computer nerd growing up.
when Windows or Mac?
Ooh, we did Windows. We were a Windows family, Windows 95 and all of that. And before that, the Tandy 1000. But it was always Windows. And we had these split screen things where you saw the words, but then down on the split side, we had the code. And so I would actually help him with some of his clients in the code underneath to get the words just right above, like the spacing and the like the bold and whatever, because it was that technical back then. So spent a whole summer vacation working with
Oh.
him on that project for one of his clients. Made some decent money that summer because we didn't have a
Oh, I
lot, so
bet.
we earned our money. So the other question, which is also actually a kind of a fun question, are you a Star Trek or Star Wars kind of fan, and why?
Star Wars.
Okay.
I would say the reason why would be I enjoy more adventure and the fantasy over like the logic and like philosophical and exploration. I enjoy both. I'm actually watching Star Trek Voyager right now for the first time,
Wow.
and it's yeah. So going back a ways for sure. Right? But I enjoy the Next Generation. I enjoy uh yeah the movies. So I watched Discovery. I really enjoyed Strange New Worlds, and that's come out. However, I've definitely been more of a Star Wars guy. I do enjoy like the fights with the lightsabers and just the mythical piece around the light side and the dark side and
Right, exactly.
just
It's
some
almost
really awesome.
religious-y, right? It's almost like, spiritual, I guess would
There
be the
is
word.
yeah,
A spiritual element
there is a
compared
spirit.
to the science side of Star Trek, because it's not as
Yes, there's
spiritual.
definitely yes. It's definitely not as spiritual and yeah, I do enjoy that spiritual element, and the most awesome villains like Darth Vader and Palpatine and Darth Maul and those peoples.
They're definitely
Yeah,
memorable. They're more serious, though. They're the serious villains versus your Q, who is more just whimsical and troublemaker and, oh, it's all in good fun and really I'm helping you, even though I'm not helping you. He's kind of the equivalent of Big Brother going, I'm not
oh.
touching you.
Basically, yes. And it's cool that they brought. Well, I don't want to give anything away, but anyway, uh, yeah, Q's. Yeah,
Q's son.
I can appreciate. I can appreciate him.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
They chose well. They did that really well with bringing his son. And I only recently discovered there was, I guess, one of the Star Trek episodes where Patrick Stewart's son was also in the show. And I did not know that until recently. I stumbled
Which one?
across it. I don't even know. I just recently stumbled across that information. I'd have to Google and see if I can find it for you. But if you look up Patrick Stewart and Star Trek episode with Patrick Stewart's son included, I'm sure it'd pop up on a Google search. But that was surprising because I've always been a very big Star Trek fan, and I thought I was pretty up to speed. I know the characters' names as well as who the actor. That one snuck past me. So
Yeah, I totally didn't know, so thanks for that. I'm going to definitely check that out now.
yeah, absolutely. That's the thing.
You know what?
It's
You
possible to
know
do
what? I know
both. Good.
it is possible. And you know what? There's a third series which I did not watch growing up, and it's Stargate SG-1,
Ah,
and I thought that series was fantastic.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never got into that, but someone else had mentioned that to me recently. I was having that conversation with some friends who live across the street. They're like, "Did you ever watch that one?" I'm like, "No, I was too busy with DS9 and everything else going on." But Richard Dean
I
Anderson,
haven't watched Deep State.
Deep Space
I
Nine,
know you can't beat. I mean, yeah, I haven't watched Deep State 9, but you can't really beat Richard Dean Anderson.
exactly.
He's good.
Yeah, so it may still get on my to do list. I might eventually watch Stargate, but just haven't yet.
Just put on hold anything for an entire year. It's like 10 season.
Okay. Well,
it's
that's good
it's
as well.
it's
You know, I
yeah.
try to watch things when they have had long seasons. I'd never like to watch something in its first or second season because I don't know if the show's gonna just end abruptly and not be satisfying. It's annoying when that happens. I like a good long, like, give us the full story, or at least make it up with movie stars just
Yes.
to finish the thought. I hate it when they abruptly stop.
Yeah. I know, like Firefly, like it was an
Yeah.
amazing first season, and thankfully they had a movie. Yeah, it's just like, oh, there could have been so much more.
Yeah, exactly. They did that with the 2003 version of Roswell too. It stuck it out for about 3 years,
Hmm.
and there was so much they could have done if it had been allowed to continue. And I really wish they had because I really enjoyed that series. The new one's okay, but I preferred that first one.
I know, such a tearjerker. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We could have fun talking sci-fi. You and I would go to town talking about sci-fi. And probably drive you
Cheers
guys
on that.
crazy, right? Because my husband would just be like, "Oh, sci-fi, oh." He'd put up with it for me because I enjoyed it. But
You'd be
not me.
surprised. You'd be surprised. Yeah, yeah.
She sounds like
She enjoys sci-fi. Oh yeah, she's probably more of a Star Trek fan than I am. So yes.
that's a good thing. Then,
and, and and if you ever get to come up here, Zoe, to a place called Vulcan, which hey,
yeah,
aptly named, right? But
right.
Vulcan, Alberta. Yeah, there's a Star Trek museum in a small town called Vulcan up here, and it's really cool to come and visit with all the memorabilia that they have.
I will
Yeah.
have to keep that in mind. The last time I was aware of anything related to a Star Trek museum was when I lived in Portland, Oregon. They had one there, but
Oh.
that
Oh.
was probably 20 years ago. I have no idea if it's still there or not, but it was back then.
It's been a slice since you've attended.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah.
It's been a slice. Well, as we wrap things up, do you have anything you would specifically like to share with our audience before we close out our show?
Well, as Jean Luc Picard would say, engage, stay engaged. With whatever you're pursuing. Doesn't Even if it seems mundane, yet staying engaged with what you're doing in your life, and don't be afraid to be curious about different possibilities and what they may unfold.
Yeah, I like that advice because curiosity really is the fuel that keeps us living, keeps us searching, and I think it's so important in a healthy life to be curious and let that curiosity move you to look at and read and try new things. So I definitely like that advice. So, all right.
Children have something on us.
That's so true. And it should be nurtured. Well, thank you so much, Eric, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Eric Fisher. I don't know that we ever said his full name during our broadcast, but I did want to put that out there. So, Recovery Arts Counseling with two L's. Is it .co or is it .com? Because I know Canada can do things differently.
.com.
Okay, it is .com. Okay. So there we have it. So I hope you liked our episode. Please remember, like, share. But thank you for joining us today.